Hello, and welcome to this new series on credit card billing statements. I'm so happy to have you here. Please join me on this journey. In this series, we are going to be going through all of the billing statements of the banks and credit card issuers I have listed here: Bank of America, Capital One, Discover, American Express, Synchrony Bank, the bank I do not like, Wells Fargo, and Citibank. Along with giving you an understanding of the platform and all of the content in these billing statements, we are also going to be reading the fine prints together. Yes. Yes, I will try to do my best to keep you engaged, but it is really critical that we thoroughly understand what our credit card billing statements are saying. Before we get started, allow me to share the story as to what inspired this series. Here is my story. You see this right here? $898.48. December of 2022, I signed the papers to buy a car, a Toyota, for $40,000. Mind you, when you think about I'm going to buy a basic Toyota, you're thinking, less than 20,000 for a sedan and about 30,000 for an SUV. Because of what was happening after the pandemic, cars went up to 40,000. That's not the point of this story, but that was the impetus that opened the floodgates to where I am today. With that $40,000 in a car note, I decided to take my finances seriously. When I put together all of my finances, I realized that I was $195,000 of non mortgage debt. We're going to put a link right here so that you can see that whole journey. With $195,000 in non mortgage debt, 50,000 of it was credit card debt. Of course, I'm sweating and I'm panicking. I have been using Mint for a long time, but never really used it to seriously budget. I just kind of used it to loosely keep track of all of my expenses. That very same day, as I am freaking out and sweating about this huge amount of debt, I open my account and guess what I see? This charge right here: $898.48 as interest charges. I'm going to tell you something. I don't know about you. I lost it. How in the world do you get this much interest charged to you at one time? You know why that happens? Now I know the lesson and the moral of the story was that I was not reading my billing statements. You see, I know it's really easy to judge me and many other people who don't read their own billing statements because most of us do not believe that this is going to be us. We don't know how to read the statements. It's full of so much information, we don't even know what's going on. You get overwhelmed, so you only focus on what? Your minimum payment, your due date, and that's it. This $898, let's come over here to this billing statement from October. This is the billing statement from October that I received in November. The other one was my billing statement from November that I received in December. My billing statement for December with transactions from the month prior. But you understand what I'm saying. Hopefully, you understand what I'm saying. So, in this billing statement, as you can see here, if you look at this statement, there's really nothing in red because, hey, they don't already taking their money from me, right? So everything is in green, black, or blue. This statement here, just the month prior, look at all the things that I have in red, telling me to beware. We're about to charge you. But because all I cared about with my limited understanding of credit cards was my due date and my minimum amount, even though you guys, at this point, I had been paying like an extra money into this card, I was ready to pay it off. I could have actually paid it off if I had, one, read this statement, and two, fully understood what the red highlights meant. But I did not. So I was charged a whopping almost $900. What was happening here was that they were telling me that this was a store bought card. When you have a store bought card, they defer your interest. But if you do not pay that interest in full, guess what happens? They get you. And that interest does not start the day. So, for example, for me, let's say my promotional balance zero transfer was ending in September. They weren't going to charge me like, oh, starting from September. No, what Synchrony does is that they go back and charge you from the first day of purchase. That's how I ended up with over almost $900 at the same time of interest, because it backdated all of that interest. And furthermore, on here, there were plenty of disclaimers that were telling me, hey, you could have called that. So, what I should have been doing when I was making my payments was calling them to tell them this payment I wanted to go towards X amount of the balance. If not, they just apply it willy-nilly and make me pay for all of that interest rate from the first time I placed that purchase almost a year ago. So it's almost as if I did not, one, make any payments towards that amount, and two, I never had the promotional balance to begin with. This was such a big lesson lived for me that it started this whole channel. I told myself that never again would I find myself in a position to give someone else $900 of my money for free, unless I'm like, if you're going to F me over, I want to at least consent to the effing over. I mean, I did consent, but I want to at least know what's about to happen, right? It wasn't just that I was charged a lot of money, but I didn't know it was coming. And it was purely out of ignorance. So in this series, with my spiel out of the way, let's get started in this series. What I'm going to be doing is taking you step by step through each one of these bank statements. Then we are going to skip over the fine print in the first part of the video. But then in the second part of the video, for each one of these billing statements, we are then going to read the fine print in detail. If you are the type of person who normally doesn't take the time to read these fine prints, please use this video as an educational tool, because those fine prints really do exist for a reason. You see, on YouTube, each one of us come and we share our own personal experience with you. But you know what? That personal experience tends to be very general. What we are going to realize as we go through each one of the fine prints of these different billing statements is what they have in common, but at the same time, what they do not have in common. The nuance in each one of these accounts that makes it unique. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. Since Synchrony Bank is the bank that pretty much unleashed my whole journey towards becoming more financially responsible, it only makes sense that we start with the billing statement from Synchrony Bank.